paying attention and that they're engaged with how their government works. So thank you all very much for being here. First of all, as we always do, I would ask all of our veterans to stand up, security conference. And I said to them, you know, the best part about this morning is being able to say thank you for your service, for what you've done for this country. I have the privilege of serving on the Veteran Affairs Committee. And the thing that's become more and more apparent to me is the men and women who serve the nation, tremendous sacrifice. But the piece we oftentimes forget are the families of the veterans and of the military and the sacrifices that they have to make. And so any assistance our community can give them, we should. We need to help families when their loved ones are deployed. To that end, and I just want to catch up a little bit with some of the things we've been doing in the community, because I think there's really two ways to look at being a member of Congress. The first way is that we look at the big issues. We look at the nation, the direction the nation's going to take. We look at the debt, the deficit, national security issues. But then there's the local piece. There's how I can serve the people who live in the district. And when we came together as a congressional office when we first got elected, we came up with our mission statement. And our mission statement was service to the district. We are a constituent-oriented office, and that's really where all of our emphasis and our time is placed. Because if I can't represent the people in the district, someone who calls our office and has a problem with Social Security or Medicare or a veterans issue, then I'm not doing my job as a representative. So that's what we focused on, and I hope that any of you, regardless of whether you like me or not, whether you support me or not, that you, if you have an issue, whether it's immigration, Social Security, Medicare, whatever the issue is, that we can help you, call our local office. My district director is Nancy Lowry. She's here. Veterans, as I serve on the Veteran Affairs Committee, it's become apparent to me that when the troops begin to come home and we deploy the troops from Iraq and Afghanistan, we as communities are going to have to step up, because the VA can't do it themselves. The VA is a government-run organization, and they do a lot of things well. We are very fortunate here that we have an excellent VA facility. Last Friday, we had the chairman of the Veteran Affairs Committee, Jeff Miller, came up here to the district. We toured the VA hospital, and he said to me afterwards, I go around the country and I see more disasters for VA hospitals, and how well run this was and how impressed he was with Jim Cody. So we are very fortunate to have that facility here. But having said that, I think we have to be realistic about what the VA can do. And when these veterans come home, we as a community have to make sure they have what they need. And it's going to take, yes, the VA, but it's also going to take the private sector, make sure there's jobs. Syracuse University co-hosted the event with us. They have a fabulous program. They have the EBV program, Entrepreneurial Boot Camp for Veterans, but they also have the Institute for Military and Veteran Affairs, Veterans and Families. So they have a track for veterans, and with that, not only while they're in school, they get the support they need. So Syracuse University helped us with that. OCC was at the conference, and we came and we together and we began to discuss how a community can help the veterans. And we started. It really is going to take, as someone once said, it takes a village, but it is going to take a community-wide effort to make sure these men and women who've put their lives on hold have to fight, keep us free. When they come back, they have what they need. So we've been very active with the veterans community and with making sure that's a big piece of what we're doing right now. We're so fortunate also to have local organizations. Team Red, White, and Blue. I don't know if you know the Irwin brothers. We've been fortunate enough to have one. He's a graduate student who interns in our office. Both local, both graduates of West Point. They started this organization, Team Red, White, and Blue. It's a mentoring system, a mentoring program for veterans as they come home. A great local support. We have Clear Path for Veterans out in Casanova. We have two sisters who started a program making sure that veterans have what they need. So that's one area where we spend a lot of time, and we think that has a real local impact. And I would say all of these services, we talk about Iraq and Afghanistan, it's very important that all veterans feel that they have a place to go. We're very fortunate in our office. I see him standing outside. We have Earl Fontenot with us. He's an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran, and he handles our military affairs, and he's got the perspective that we don't have. There's no way we can have it. He's got the perspective, and he handles our military and our veteran issues. So Beyond that, we had Service Academy Day a couple of weeks ago at West Genesee High School. We had all branches of the service academies there. Their representatives were there, and we invited all of the kids from high school, juniors in high school, to come and get information about the service academies. That's one of the best things that I do. These young Americans come in and they're just so outstanding and they want to serve their nation. It's so impressive. And it really is hopeful because these are who we're going to hand this country off to, these young people. So we had that last week. We continue to do town halls. We continue to meet with businesses. And I think one of the takeaways for me over the last year and a half, we go to so many walks. Saturday, Sunday mornings we go to, last Saturday was the Autism Awareness Walk. Sunday it was the Kidney Foundation. And I think, and I saw it in the community, the Veterans Symposium we had a couple weeks ago, we live in such a great community. We have the kindest, generous people, most generous people in this area who are willing to give, who are willing on a Sunday morning to see 2,000 people out at Burnett Park, and all for this one cause. And over again with these walks, people who care about their community, they care about people. Yesterday we had an editorial board meeting with the Post-Standard, and I survived it. But that's one of the, I said to them and I challenged them, you've got to be a purveyor of good news. You've got to be talking about the good things that go on in this community. You know, we meet with the Syracuse Board of Realtors. They're trying to sell homes. They're trying to attract people here. Businesses want to, we want to attract businesses here so we have jobs. Syracuse and our whole district, upstate New York, is a great place to raise a family, to live the quality of life. But we've got to sell it. We've got to tell about the people who live here, the services that are available, the organizations that are here, because it is a good place to live. And I challenge the paper, print a page of good news for once in a while instead of just all the bad stuff. I think I kind of brought you up to date, and I would like now to start with the questions, my very favorite part of the town hall. And the process that you fill out a form and put your question in the basket. I do want to just address one thing. I don't know who is handing out this literature, but I think we got to talk about this a little bit because it's not fair to seniors. And politics are politics, but when you hand out stuff like this and you scare our seniors, that's just wrong. And I just want to talk about this piece. And I want to talk about, and this woman up here talked about our mailing, and the way I see this. The health care law, the Affordable Care Act, has a provision in it. And that provision cuts Medicare by $500 billion. It cuts Medicare Advantage by about $250 billion, and then Medicare in general. It was one of the ways, when they put the law together, that they were going to fund the law, because the law is turning out to be more and more expensive. But that was one of the ways they were going to fund the law, is the cuts to Medicare. They also set up in the law IPAB, which is an Independent Payment Advisory Board. So those two pieces of the law will go into effect in 2014. Now, as you know, the Affordable Care Act is a law. It's not a proposal, it's a law. And the law will go into effect, of course, depending on what the Supreme Court does in June. And we will begin to see the results of that law. And we will begin to see cuts in Medicare and unavailability of services. We've already heard from seniors, and maybe some of you have experienced it, where your physician puts a letter or sends you a letter and says, we're going to limit the number of Medicare patients because of the Medicare reimbursements to them. We hear from our hospitals the cuts to Medicare and how they're going to be impacted by it. And I think it's important to realize that it is not only in the Affordable Care Act, it's in sequestration, and it's coming at them from many other people. It's a whole series of cuts that will affect healthcare. Now, we've taken the position here that because we have terrific hospitals that offer services, and they are our major employers, that we got to make sure the hospitals are taken care of and they have what they need so that they won't run into financial problems. We meet with them on a regular basis, and they tell me that the healthcare law is going to kill them. because they're losing disproportionate share money in the healthcare law. It phases out, and I'll just briefly explain what that is. Disproportionate share money, when a hospital treats Medicaid patients or uninsured patients, because the government realizes it's not going to cover their costs. If they're on Medicaid, that doesn't cover the hospital's costs if there's no insurance. So the federal government gives them a disproportionate share. On a yearly basis, they factor in how many patients, and of course the hospital has to provide a list of the patients, and they get a reimbursement. Well, disproportionate share money, the Medicare disproportionate share money, is going to be phased out in the healthcare law. So that impacts the hospitals. So it's a number of areas where they're being, where they have concerns, and I think rightly so. Now, I think this piece refers to, when it says, I voted to create a fast track in Congress to cut Social Security benefits. Even Paul Ryan's budget, even the Republican budget that was just voted on, doesn't address Social Security. There's nothing on the table with regards to cutting Social Security. Does Social Security have problems? Yes. Did the federal government create those problems by robbing the trust fund? Yes. Did they put seniors in jeopardy because of that? Yes. But there's nothing in Congress, there's nothing in the Republican budget that says we're going to cut Social Security. So to say that and to create, concern and angst amongst our seniors, I don't think is prudent. With regards to Medicare, we did make a proposal in the Republican budget. And what I want to talk to you about is the difference between the Republican budget, Path to Prosperity, versus the Affordable Care Act. We just talked about that and its impact on Medicare. The Republican budget that came out of the House, as you know, it's sitting over in the Senate. And it won't be taken up, and it won't be passed. But what we did in the House was we put together a spending plan. And what that spending plan said was that Medicare, in its current form, is in danger. And if we as a nation want to keep Medicare alive and well for generations to come, we've got to look at it. And so what's proposed, and I say that, proposed, not the law, is that those who are 54 and younger would have a different Medicare plan. It would look different than it looks now. But those who are 55 years and above, Medicare remains the same. So I again go back to this. There are no cuts for those who are on Medicare. There's no change. The Affordable Care Act changes Medicare as we know it. Not the budget proposal out of the House. And I think as a nation, we have got to start to look at, just like a family looks at a problem relative or a problem child, we got to sit down and we got to figure out what we're going to do about Medicare and about Social Security. And to make sure that the people who need it get it. One of the things that we do in the Republican budget is we say, okay, now Medicare is going to be means tested, and if you're wealthy and you don't depend on Medicare, then the government isn't going to help you with Medicare. You can afford to pay it yourself, you can afford to pay your own insurance. And we all talk about fairness, that's fair because then it factors in there are folks who really need help and need support from the government for Medicare, and then that will be in place. But somewhere, and I don't know how we do this, we've got to start talking about how we're going to preserve Medicare. The Medicare actuaries have predicted that very soon, some say 2016, some say 2024, that Medicare Part A, the part that pays the hospitals, is going to be bankrupt. So what are we going to do? We're going to just wait till the very last minute and have a crisis and then throw some money at it without a plan? We got to sit down, we got to figure out what we're going to do. And demagoguing plans, I think, this is one way to look at it, probably because I'm in the House and we put out the budget, I think it takes more courage to pass a budget than what the Senate's doing. The Senate hasn't passed a budget. They haven't even put out a proposal for a budget since 2009. 3 years, this country's been without a budget because the Senate fails to act. That's just wrong. The last Congress before me, the 211th Congress, did not pass a budget. That's why you hear these continuing